Assalamualaikum to everyone. Today, with Simon Nani Hudson, let's get started. Today, we continue learning the ecosystem. Let's get started. Today we continue learning the ecosystem. If you know this is a review for you. Shizuka is a review. Listen up.
Cool. Whoa. Hey, get down from there. Dear Tim and Moby, how come there aren't dinosaurs anymore? From Petra.
Today we're learning dinosaurs.
About 65 million years ago, all of the dinosaurs on Earth went extinct. Extinction happens when an entire species of animal dies out. A species is any group of organisms that shares enough common traits to breed together. Well, like you couldn't breed a cat and a dog. They're members of different species. Anyway, there are millions of different species living on Earth today. When people think about extinct animals, dinosaurs come to mind, the saber-toothed tiger, maybe the dodo bird. But extinction is a much bigger deal than a loss of a few really cool-looking creatures. More than 99% of all the species that ever lived on Earth are now gone forever. That's over 1 billion extinct species. I know. Extinction can happen in several ways. Mass extinction occurs when a large percentage of all the species on Earth becomes extinct in a relatively short period of time. Scientists believe that mass extinctions happen because of sudden environmental factors like major changes in climate. The loss of most of the dinosaurs was actually part of a mass extinction. It was likely the result of an environmental disaster caused at least partly by a meteor hitting the Earth 65 million years ago. Somewhere around half of all species on Earth died off when the dinosaurs did. Species can also go extinct from normal evolutionary pressure. Evolution is the process by which species change over many generations. Yeah, it's called the theory of evolution, but in science, a theory is more than just a guess. It's a well-established model that's supported by repeated experimentation and hard evidence. So, according to the theory of evolution, all living things are constantly competing for resources like food, water, and space. When a type of organism loses out on these life essentials, its species eventually goes extinct. For most of Earth's history, somewhere between 10 and 100 species have gone extinct every year. These days, that number has gone way up. Some biologists estimate that as many as 11 species on Earth go extinct every hour. I don't mean to freak you out, but it is a big problem. Human activities like industry, farming, forestry, and commercial fishing put a lot of pressure on the environment. In the 1970s, the use of the pesticide DDT nearly drove the bald eagle to extinction in North America. And when a species dies out, it can affect the entire ecosystem. Well, think about food chains. If a plant species dies off, all the animals that eat it will have to scramble for different food. Then some of them will die off, and then the animals that eat those smaller animals will be affected too. It's important for us to remember that we share this planet. Humans depend on other life forms for all kinds of things like food, clothing, medicine, and shelter, to name a few. If we put too much pressure on the environment, we might drive the organisms we depend on to extinction. And that would be bad. Can we get off this thing now, please?
Today, we continue learning the dinosaur information. Let's get started. Today, answer this question to yourself. Why you think the dinosaurs are important in this earth? Let's get started.
You found a fossil? Hey, why are you digging a hole in the backyard? I don't think that's a fossil. I think it belongs to the Rottweiler next door. Dear Tim and Moby, what makes something a fossil? From Ross. Well, a fossil is a remnant of an organism. Usually, fossils are at least several thousand years old and found in the ground. Not every organism gets fossilized after it dies. As a matter of fact, it's a pretty rare occurrence. Fossilization has to start off with the right circumstances, like a quick burial. This is a body fossil, a part of the original organism that's been preserved. It's a bug that got trapped in amber, a type of sticky tree sap. Over time, the sap hardened, and we were left with this little keepsake. Body fossils are usually found in places where bacteria, insects, and the other things that cause decay aren't able to thrive. They form when an animal dies in the desert, or gets frozen in ice, or, I don't know, gets trapped in a tar pit. Yeah, well, body fossils are really rare. Trace fossils, like these footprints, are the most common fossil type. Trace fossils can include animal tracks, nests, bite marks, and even animal poop. Other types of fossils form when an animal dies and is immediately covered by earth, mud, or sand. The covering slows decay down to a crawl and eventually turns to solid rock. The hardest parts of the animal, stuff like bones, teeth, and shells, don't decay for thousands of years. When they finally do, they've left a lasting impression in the rock. That's a mold fossil, a hollow print. Sometimes, water will bubble up through the earth, filling a mold with minerals. Over time, the minerals harden into rock, leaving a cast fossil. A cast fossil looks just like the original bone or shell. Right, of course, there are also carbon-based fossil fuels. All of the oil, gas, and coal on Earth was formed from the remains of fossilized plants and animals. For example, way back, like 300 million years ago, much of the planet was covered by tropical swamps. When the trees and plants that lived there died, they drifted to the bottom of the swamp. There, they slowly decomposed and formed a soggy, spongy substance called peat. Eventually, the peat got buried under layers of dirt and rock. Heat and pressure took their toll, and after millions of years, the peat turned into coal. Anyway, we can learn a lot from fossils. By looking closely at the fossil record, we can discover when and where lots of different organisms lived. In fact, we can learn about the entire history of life on Earth. Oh, the fossil record is just a fancy term for the sum total of what we know about fossils. Yeah, that's not going to work. It has to be under extreme pressure for millions of... Huh.
We continue learning about now. Now we're learning the dinosaur called reptile. If you learn this, if you forgot it, pay attention. This is a very important thing to learn. Animal to learn.
therapy coming. You'll never get over your fear of snakes from watching fake videos. Dear Cassie and Moby, will you do a movie on reptiles? Thanks. Keith. Hey Keith. There are thousands and thousands of reptile species. They live on land and in the water pretty much everywhere except Antarctica. A lot of them look way different from each other, but they all share some common features. You know you're looking at a reptile when it's covered in these tough scales. That skin protects them and keeps moisture inside. Most reptiles regularly molt or shed their skin to grow. Actually, people shed their skin too, just a tiny bit at a time. And that's not all we have in common with reptiles. They're vertebrates, meaning they have a backbone. And they all have a pair of lungs to breathe air, even sea turtles and snakes. That's about where the similarities end. Most reptiles are ectothermic, or cold-blooded. They can't produce their own body heat, so they get it from the sun. And unlike mammals, they hatch from leathery eggs. Baby reptiles are basically just mini versions of adults. They're ready to fend for themselves right out of the egg, which is a good thing because the parents are usually long gone by then. Some snakes hatch inside the mother's body and are born alive. But even then, the mother doesn't need to stick around and care for them. Reptiles mainly fall into one of four categories. Lizards are the most diverse, with over 4,000 different species. The majority are omnivores, feeding on both plants and animals. Most species eat insects and other bugs. But big guys like this monitor lizard feed on mammals and birds too. Lizards usually have 4 legs with sharp-clawed feet, and their bodies generally taper off into tails. Oh right, that's another really cool thing. A lot of lizards can flick out their tongues to smell their surroundings. The tongue is collecting airborne molecules and bringing them back into the Jacobson's organ inside its mouth. Yup, all snakes do exactly the same thing. Their forked tongues are built to deliver scents right to the Jacobson's organ. After lizards, snakes are the second most common type of reptile. They have no limbs and live just about everywhere on Earth, including the oceans. All snakes are carnivorous, consuming only meat, and sometimes eggs. They can open their jaws wide enough to swallow stuff that's bigger than their own heads. Only a few snakes are venomous, by the way. Most are harmless to people. Okay, let's move on to something cuter. Turtles and tortoises can live on land, in fresh water, or in the sea. All of them have protective shells. Some can pull their heads and limbs inside when the going gets tough. Unlike other types of reptiles, turtles and tortoises have no teeth. Instead, they have beaks that help them bite off food and chew it. Crocodilians, on the other hand, do have teeth, lots of them. Besides crocodiles, they include alligators and caimans too. All crocodilians are carnivorous, and they live mainly in the tropics. Most of their time is spent in the water, so they've evolved some nifty adaptations for hunting, like eyes and nostrils on the tops of their heads. That lets them see and breathe while they stay hidden under the surface. Yeah, they kind of do look like dinosaurs, which shouldn't be too big a surprise. Dinosaurs were reptiles too. More than 300 million years ago, reptiles were the first vertebrates to leave the water behind and live entirely on land. As they spread out and adapted to new environments, they became more diverse. One branch evolved into dinosaurs, which all modern birds are descended from. Another branch of reptiles became mammals, and the rest evolved into modern snakes, lizards, crocs, and turtles. Today, pretty much every vertebrate on land has a reptile somewhere back in its family tree. That's why we all share so many things in common. Anyway, I hope this has helped you get over your fear of snakes. Hey, I'm proud of you. You deserve a Moby snack. Ain't I a stinker?
The next thing you want to know is dying time. Let's get started.
Whoa. Dear Tim and Moby, what's with the Stegosaurus's plates? I thought they were armor, but my teacher says they were too fragile. From Dell. Hey, that's a great... Whoa, Moby, we're not going to see a Stegosaurus here. Dear Tim and Moby, what's with the Stegosaurus's plates? I thought they were armor, but my teacher says they were too fragile. From Dell. Hey, that's a great... Whoa, Moby, we're not going to see a Stegosaurus here. Or here. Wait, you'll never find it by traveling around randomly. Dinosaurs roamed the Earth for 160 million years. That's about 1,000 times longer than modern humans have been around. You'd blow a fuse trying to cover the entire Mesozoic era. Go, go, go! Thank you. When Stegosaurus was first discovered, it was assumed that those plates acted like armor. Newer evidence shows that they were fragile and filled with blood vessels, but that doesn't mean they couldn't have used them for protection. The Stegosaurus might have flooded them with blood as a warning display, or it might have been used to attract mates, or control its body temperature, and maybe all of the above. Well, we still have a lot to learn about dinosaurs, and it's tough to be certain when all we have to go on are fossils. Those are the remains of ancient organisms. Most fossil finds are nowhere near a complete skeleton. Try guessing how a dinosaur looked and behaved just from examining a few bones and footprints. But that's just what paleontologists do. They gather clues from around the world to assemble a snapshot of a species. Paleontologists have added hundreds of dinosaurs to the fossil record, a history of all life on Earth. One of the earliest species is the Eoraptor. He lived about 230 million years ago, during the Triassic period. Yeah, it's hard to even imagine how far back that is, but this'll give you an idea. The continents didn't exist yet. All the land was smushed together in a mass we call Pangaea. Most of it was a hot desert, perfect for a small reptile like Eoraptor. Yup, dinosaur means terrible lizard, but those first ones weren't too scary. Eoraptor was about the size of a beagle. He was an omnivore, feeding on both plants and small animals. This baby Mosaurus could fit in the palms of your hands. These little dinos probably weren't the dominant species of their time. They competed for survival with early mammals and other reptiles. But around 200 million years ago, more than half of all these species got wiped out.
No.
We know because the rock layers from around this time contain so few fossils. This mass extinction might be connected to the breakup of Pangaea. Volcanic eruptions lasting thousands of years began to spread the land apart. All that volcanic activity would have changed the climate and filled the air with poison gas. Earth has gone through several mass extinctions in its history. Many species die off, but it's like a reset button that lets new creatures thrive. This time, it led to the rise of the dinosaurs during the Jurassic period. Dense jungles replaced the widespread deserts, and as continents began to drift around the globe, the dinosaurs went along for the ride. During the Jurassic, they got much, much larger. Some carnivores, like the Allosaurus, grew to several thousand pounds. But that's nothing compared to the plant eaters. The Stegosaurus got up to around 10,000 pounds. And the Apatosaurus could tip the scales at over 100,000. That's as heavy as a passenger plane. It didn't sound like the wind. Ooh. The Cretaceous period had the coolest dinosaurs. The carnivores got even bigger, like this Spinosaurus. He's the biggest meat-eating dinosaur on record. And the Tyrannosaurus rex had the strongest bite of any land animal ever. That's why some paleontologists think he was a deadly hunter. But others say he was too big and slow to chase prey. They think T-Rex was a scavenger, picking over dead animals for meals. Whatever he ate, he could put down 500 pounds of it in one bite. What was that? Yep, the continents kept drifting apart during the Cretaceous. Oceans and mountains formed, separating different groups of dinosaurs. As a result, they grew more diverse. Hadrosaurids, the duckbills, were champion chewers. They had over 1,000 teeth to help them grind up vegetation. Dromaeosaurids, the raptors, developed larger brains. They probably used their smarts to hunt in packs. Look at those long, razor-sharp claws. If these guys right here suddenly came to life, we'd be in some hot water. What are you doing? Yep, raptors probably had feathers as well as scales. They couldn't fly, but the feathers might have helped keep them warm. But that didn't help them survive. What happened next? It's thought that a large asteroid strike triggered another mass extinction. It kicked up enough dust to block out the sun for years. Plants died and temperatures plummeted. With no way to quickly adapt, the dinosaurs went extinct. Actually, one branch of their family tree did make it through. Birds split off from dinosaurs sometime during the Cretaceous. Their warm blood and larger brains helped them adapt to the challenging new environment. Good idea. I'm so hungry I could Zamboni! I'm gonna guess you're behind this. Well, at least he's waiting his turn.
The next thing we're gonna do is next thing we're gonna do is the next thing we're gonna do is play Fortnite. Let's get started. Let's get started. Hold up, I'll be right back. you did something. Shut up. You don't have to shut up. Do I make myself clear? Let's continue. The next thing we're gonna do is just listen how we hear something. Let's get started.
The Mysteries of Life with Tim and Moby. Hey, welcome back to the Mysteries of Life. Here's this week's letter. Dear Tim and Moby, wherever I go, I sense strange noises in my head. When I drop the phone book, I hear a thump. When people open their mouths, I hear words. Please tell me what's going on. From Katie. Good question. You are hearing sound waves. I think I should explain a little bit about how sound works. Sound waves are vibrations in the air around you. When something creates a disturbance in the air, waves travel away from the disturbance, just like ripples on a pond. Sound waves travel real fast, about 1,200 kilometers per hour. That's about 12 times faster than a really big shark. Let's take a close look at your ears to see how you hear sound. Listen carefully. If you had a see-through head, you'd look something like this. Your ear is divided into 3 parts. The outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The inner ear isn't really this big, but we've drawn it large so you can see it better. The outer ear is the part you can see. It's made of a rubbery substance called cartilage, and its little ridges bounce sound waves into your middle ear. The sound waves travel down the auditory canal and hit your tympanic membrane, or eardrum. The vibrations of sound make your eardrum vibrate, just like a real drum. The ear contains the smallest bones in your body, the hammer, the stirrup, and the anvil. Let's see them in action. The eardrum's vibrations are transferred to the hammer, which begins to move back and forth really fast. The hammer bounces against the anvil, which passes its momentum to the stirrup, creating vibrations in the inner ear, kind of like Morse code. The inner ear is connected to nerve fibers that carry the signal to your brain. Your brain turns the signals into sound. That's what you hear. Some animals can hear much better than humans. Cats, for example, can hear high-frequency sounds that people can't even begin to detect. Hearing relies on a complex chain of events in your ear, and if parts of the chain don't work, deafness can result. Since deaf people can't hear, they use a language of hand gestures called sign language. Here's my friend Lily to demonstrate. Watch your hands closely. Thanks, Lily. So that's how hearing works. Hey, Moby, what are you listening to? I am a goofball. I am a great big fool. Instead of a brain, I have a heavy rock inside my head. When I wake up in the morning, sometimes I just fall right back down because I don't know. Where did you get this recording? Huh.
The next thing we're gonna learn is sound. Let's get started.
Dear Tim and Moby, what is sound? From Nathaniel. Cut it out. Sound travels in waves, like the ones in the ocean. Well, not exactly the same. Ocean waves vibrate up and down at a right angle to the direction of the wave. That's called a transverse wave. Sound travels in something called a longitudinal wave. Here, we'll show you. A sound wave is a chain of vibrating molecules. Hitting these cymbals causes air molecules to vibrate. The Vibration pushes nearby air molecules back and forth, making the local air pressure rise and fall. Let's see it in slow motion. As the cymbal pushes into the air molecules are packed tighter, creating a compression. When the cymbal pulls back in its vibration, it creates a low pressure area called a rarefaction. Put them together and you get a cycle, and these cycles form a longitudinal wave. Humans can hear sounds from 20 to 20,000 cycles per second. This oscilloscope is designed to measure sound waves. How loud a sound is depends on the force of the compression or the amplitude. A low amplitude produces a quiet sound, and high amplitude means loud noise. The pitch of a sound comes from the wave's frequency. High-frequency waves make high-pitched sounds. Low-frequency waves make low-pitched sounds. Usually, all sounds travel through the air at 344 meters per second. If it's warmer, the sound can travel faster. Colder air makes the sound slower. Sound can travel 1,524 meters per second underwater, and around 5,486 meters per second through steel. Sound can travel a whole lot further through denser mediums. Whales can communicate with each other by making sounds that travel thousands of miles. Sounds can be reflected or absorbed by things that they hit. An echo is a sound that bounces off hard, smooth surfaces back to your ears. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Soft surfaces like grass or pillows will absorb sound waves. You only know one chord, don't you?
The next thing we're gonna do now is the 13 columns. Let's get started.
You thought the House of Burgesses was a restaurant? Well, that's no reason to give them a bad Yawp review. This was the first legislature in the 13 colonies. Dear Tim and Moby, our teacher says we're going to study the regions of the 13 colonies. Why were they divided up like that? From Mia and Phoebe. Hey there. Historians talk about the American colonies in terms of 3 regions. The New England colonies, which included Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. The Middle colonies, made up of Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. And the Southern colonies of Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. In reality, the colonies weren't actually divided up into regions. It's just an idea that was invented to help us understand what life was like back then. The colonies in each region shared certain things in common. Similar climates, economies, cultures, and populations. So instead of trying to remember stuff about 13 places, we can simplify it to 3. A colony is a territory that a country controls outside its own borders. The country... It's
Let's
enriched by the
continue.
land and other
Back.
resources of the colony. That's what England was thinking when it sent colonists to America. It staked its first claim way back in 1607 in Jamestown, Virginia. Of course, native people had already been living there for thousands of years. But that didn't stop England from laying claim to the land. In a little over a century, they'd spread out to 12 other territories up and down the East Coast. No, Native Americans didn't just give up their land without a fight. But a couple of factors tipped the odds in England's favor. For one, colonists carried diseases that native people had no resistance to. Within a few decades, most of them died.
The next thing we're gonna do is is preparing for emergency service. Let's get started. Let's get started. Today I'm an ambulance driver. I better hear. Hunter ambulance is here. The next game we're gonna play is, let's see.
Starfall.com, where children have fun learning. Put the word into the correct shape. Body. This is my body. I can move it like this. Head. My head is on my body. I can move it like this.
Today we none of the part our body stuff. Let's get started.
Neck. My neck is on my body. I can move it like this. Arm. My arm is on my body. I can move it like this. Foot. My foot is on my body. I can move it like this. Hand. My hand is on my body. I can move it like this. Leg. My leg is on my body. I can move it like this. Good job. You know neck, head, body, arm, leg, hand, foot. Come on, let's go. What will I wear? First, pick a top. Then, pick a bottom. Choose some shoes. Love. Dress. Up. I love to dress up. I love to dress up. Ten balloons.
Answer, which one of you?
7 5 balloons. 4 balloons. 3 balloons. 2 balloons. 1 balloon. 0 balloons. 0.
If I had 10 apples and gave them all away, I would then have 0 apples. 0 apples today. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and 4. 3, 2, 1, 0. Now I have no more. 0, 0, 0. 0 apples today. 0, 0, 0 apples. I gave them all away. We each have an apple we can buy.
see. Let's make a calendar. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Great job! Today is Sunday, November 8th, 2020. Fill in the missing day and date. Fill in the missing day and date. Sunday, 8th. Great job! Mark any special days this month.
On Friday, first quarter end, and tomorrow will be the second quarter begin.
Goodbye. A-hunting we will go. A-hunting we will go. We'll catch a fox and put him in a box and then we'll let him go. A-hunting we will go. A-hunting we will go. We'll catch a fish and put him on a dish and then we'll let him go. A-hunting we will go. A-hunting we will go. We'll catch a bear and cut his hair and then we'll let him go. A-hunting we will go. A-hunting we will go. We'll catch a pig and then the jig. And then we'll let him go. Backpack is a little bear, little bear, little bear. Make a gingerbread. Girl or boy? Boy. Choose the eyes for the gingerbread boy. Triangle. Choose a nose for the gingerbread boy. Cone. Cube. Rectangle.
It's healthy. It's nice and fresh.
Green. Yellow. Orange. Run, run, jump for joy. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread boy. Run, run, jump for joy. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread boy.
Bad girl.
February 2nd is
Bad girl.
Groundhog Day.
Bad girl.
Shut up! No one likes you, stupid.
Close.
February 2nd is Groundhog Day.
Say again. That's you.
Groundhog,
put it there.
what will you see? Groundhog, groundhog,
No.
please tell me.
Trash girl.
Trash can.
And trash girl.
That's what you don't even know. That's why you don't even know your grandma.
You don't know your grandma, so you should be.
Shut up.
No.
Shut up.
6 more weeks of winter.
The next thing we're gonna do is just listen to a short story. Let's get started.
Atalanta was the most beautiful woman in Greece. Many men wanted to marry her, but she always said no. Atalanta wanted to be a runner, not a wife. She practiced running every day. Soon she was faster than every other woman and man in Greece. A prince saw Atalanta running and fell in love with her. But when he asked her to marry him, Atalanta said no. The prince followed Atalanta everywhere. Will you marry me? He asked her again and again. How could Atalanta get him to stop bothering her? Atalanta had an idea. I will marry you if you can beat me in a running race. The prince could not run faster than Atalanta. He asked the goddess of love for help. The goddess gave him 3 golden apples and said, "These apples will help you win the race." A large crowd gathered to watch the race. The crowd shouted, "On your mark, get set, go!" Atalanta sprinted away, leaving the prince in the dust. But the prince